All right, so back on September 9th of 2024, I came back basically to the channel, my channel, started uploading Space Marine 2 because I think that was day 1 or day 2 or something of Space Marine's release. I figured it would probably be a good excuse to try YouTube again because for those of you who don't know, and pretty much for all of you who don't know about my channel, it's actually pretty old. I'm not a veteran YouTuber, unfortunately. I didn't realize that back then YouTube could be not a career path, but a good way to financially keep yourself stable. And back then, I didn't know that was the case. I just made videos for fun. I actually have probably 15 times more videos than there are right now, but I deleted a lot of them because back then, I think my only source of recording software I had at the time that was free anyway was Bandicam. Bandicam was horrible. I mean, I think I still have a few of the Dynasty Warriors online videos, and then one of the Warframe videos. All that stuff was actually filmed on Bandicam, and it's nice to see how much the technology has gone forward with recording software, at least for free stuff. I use OBS, but anyway, that was actually so the day I posted my first walkthrough of Space Marine 2, basically the first part of the campaign. The morning before, I had woke up in the morning. I took a shower, then I went to go open my door and grab my Amazon package, which actually had my recording mics, a studio mic that I bought, so I could actually start doing this stuff, kind of like on a professional scale, so to speak. Although my setup still isn't professional as of yet. And on that same morning, I went to go place my box, my microphone next to my computer. Then I went to go sit down on my bed. And at the time, I had a full-time job, and I was delivering patio furniture. And what was cool about this job was during the spring and summer seasons, we would deliver patio furniture, go with a buddy driver, driving around trucks all day, box trucks. It was a pretty sweet gig. I would get tips from it too, because I would go to a lot, and I mean a lot of bougie houses. And I live here in Colorado in the Golden area. For those of you that are familiar with Colorado, yeah, basically the foothills. So, and Golden's pretty nice anyway. But besides the fact, I would go for Colorado residents, for any one of you watching from Colorado, I would go deliver places I would go deliver to Castle Pines. I didn't know that Littleton had an extremely gated, super fancy gated community out in Littleton off of Bowles. I did not know a community like that existed. Holy shit, these were some ultra modern fancy houses mixed in with some of the Beverly Hills type of aesthetics that a lot of those houses in Littleton have. And I would make several deliveries all the way out to Wyoming, out of state. I would make deliveries out in the mountains. I love those mountain deliveries. And so that's what I was doing at the time that I was going to restart my YouTube channel. So back to sitting on my bed that morning when I grabbed my studio mic and placed it on my computer desk. The moment I sat down and I was fully compressed on my bed, which is a memory foam mattress. I don't know if it being memory foam was the cause of what happened to me, but the moment I was fully relaxed on my bed sitting down, I had a muscle spasm in the lower right corner of my back. And at first I didn't think it was bad, because it only lasted for about maybe a second or so. So I've pulled my back several times. I've had muscle spasms left and right in my lower right corner of my back, but I've always been able to walk it off a day or two later, just from some mild soreness, nothing else. But this one actually I didn't know it was pretty bad, because I was like, oh, that wasn't too bad. It did make me flinch and make me stand straight up, but I didn't think of any of it. Then I went and got to sit down on my computer chair in front of my computer desk. I don't know why I'm saying the government name, but went to go sit down on my chair in front of my computer, get the microphone set up, started playing around with it, doing some recordings just to see everything was working. Started recording my Space Marine footage, my campaign stuff. Then I go and get it edited, and then I post it up on YouTube, and I was pretty happy that I was able to actually kind of get this stuff going again. And that's when I realized, when I got out of my computer chair to do a little bit of stretching, grab something to eat and all that, I immediately flopped to the floor on both knees because I could not support my upper body weight, because it turns out that muscle spasm basically did me in from for the rest of the year. And then I tried to get back up just to see if I can catch myself. I could not. Instead of trying to reorient myself, I ended up going on my leg, on my both my hands. So basically in a baby crawl. And then I kind of just plopped to the ground and kind of sat on the side of my back, and then quickly moved over to lie down on my back on the floor, completely flat. And that was some incredible pain. I had never felt pain like that before. I didn't know muscle spasm could get like that. And to get around to the previous injuries I had. So back in high school, I was a gym rat. I was in the gym every day. During high school, during my off hours, I was always in the gym. The moment I got out of class and I had an off period, I would go and spend that 45 minutes and just lift weights. And one day, I was just doing my normal routine. And back then, I was pretty strong. I was 18 at the time, 17 or 18 when I had this injury. And I had some strength back then. I was proud of how much strength I had. And I was going to do a warm-up with squats. And my squat warm-up back then, which was just a set of 10 reps for one set, just nothing special. And it was 310 pounds, so 310 was my warm-up on squats. I was always told that's a little bit heavy for you, but when it came to kind of figuring out strength, kind of give you like a comparison. So back then, 310 pounds kind of felt more like about 150 to me. It was lightweight. I could not feel that kind of weight sitting on my shoulders. I never felt that kind of weight. It was only when I would go up to around 500 pounds or so on a squat that I could actually feel the weight. But 310 pounds, I could not feel it. It was almost as if I was just squatting just the bar itself. I had no plates on it or anything. So that's kind of what it felt like. And then as I was coming up on my 10th rep, and mind you, I have perfect form and everything. I mean, I still have that muscle memory today. I haven't lifted weights in years. But whenever I lift up my dumbbells I have sitting in my room along with a 45-pound plate, when I do some sort of upper body routine, the muscle memory instantly kicks in. Everything is perfect form regardless of what I'm doing. So as I'm coming up to finish the last rep, I'm getting ready to put it on the rack so I can rest and swap out the plates and actually start my routine. But as I was getting ready to put it on the squat rack, that's when I felt a weird, painful sensation in my lower right corner of my back. And this is kind of where it kind of basically spiraled out of control. Back then, it wasn't too bad, just because it basically was my first time having a spasm. But it felt like I hyperextended my back when I was putting on the weight. That's what it felt like. It felt like someone pushed my back outwards. And I was able to actually catch it, but I think that was my problem, Mary. I think that was the first issue I had, was I tried to catch the weight. And then when that actually happened, that's when I could feel all 300 pounds. That's when I actually felt the weight. And then I had to just drop it onto the safety rack underneath, which was just right above my knees. So I did have to kind of actually almost sit down, basically, so that way the safety rack could actually catch the weight. And then I rolled back and stayed on my back for a moment. Coach went to come and check me out to see if I was doing okay. And he asked what happened, and I literally couldn't tell him. I don't know what happened. Something felt something in my back. And he says, "Do you know what happened? Did it feel like you pinched something or what?" I don't know. I've never felt. I mean, it took years after that to realize what I had was a muscle spasm. And before I did any kind of routine, I was always properly stretching. And I was actually, well, not actually, I am still pretty flexible. I can still do a vert split like it was yesterday, not having to stretch out in years. And I can still do the splits just fine. So I had a lot of good flexibility back then. So I always actually trained with the cheerleading squad, just because, they actually had all the proper stretching routines. They had a little bit of gymnastics stretching in there too. I actually dabbled in a little bit of gymnastics back in high school, so I mean, I kind of did a little bit of everything. I was an athlete. I did anything and everything possible when it came to sports. So you name it, I most likely did it. But my primaries was a lot of bicycling. I did a lot of skateboarding and a lot of jogging, but that was back in the day. And then we fast forward basically to last September, when I had the spasm. And this was actually the first time I actually went to go and check out what was actually going on with my back. So I had MRIs done and I had an x-ray done. What ended up happening was, and it wasn't from the spasm just revealed what was going on with my back, because I never went to actually go and get my back looked at professionally. And I think that was another issue I had, another thing I probably should have done when I first had the injury back in high school, was actually go and get my back looked at. So as it turns out, I have a pinched nerve near my L4 and L5S1 of my spine. Not only is it pinched, but it's damaged. And apparently, from what I've been told, the damage to the nerve is not repairable. I'm always going to have pain back there now. I also have moderate stenosis, and to make it clear, anyone and everyone on this entire planet has some form of stenosis. That's just kind of, it comes with basic wear and tear of your spine as you get older. But mine's moderate. You know, at my age, even when you're old, you know, you should only have like mild stenosis. I have moderate stenosis, so it's a little bit worse than it should be. And that's the hardening of your discs. On top of that, I also have 2 protruding discs, which actually is my L4 and L5S1. So 2 discs that are protruding, but they're not hemorrhaged or not herniated. And then I also have arthritis as well. So I also had some shots done. I got put into a back pain program that's actually pretty new recently. And the first thing that the doctor that I spoke to, this back specialist, he told me, you know, dude, you're way too young to be in this program. And I could kind of see it when I was in the waiting room. It's like, there's no young people here. It's like, I'm the only young person here. Everyone else is fully gray haired, completely wrinkled skin. I mean, people who look like they're in their late 80s, early 90s. And here I am, one of the youngest people supposedly in that whole program. So yeah, kind of, I don't know. I don't know if to say if it was like embarrassing or something, but yeah, it definitely felt out of place being there. So they gave me 2 shots in the problem areas of my spine. Neither of those shots did anything. I woke up the next few mornings. I mean, they told me that the shots were supposed to take after a couple days, and it's been just a little over a month now. They never worked. And now come October, so basically this was the first week of September of last year that I had the spasm. I literally could not walk for that entire week. I was trying to bear crawl to and from everywhere. I have a really small room, which is also where my computer setup is. I kind of like to have everything consolidated in one room rather than spread out throughout the house. And it felt like miles trying to get to and from my bed to my computer desk, my computer chair. And because just how much pain I was in. Sometimes the pain was so excruciating I couldn't move. So that was quite a week. And then of course I was actually lucky enough to get put on medical leave through the company that I was working with. And I actually lucked out on being able to actually get approved for the medical leave, because I was not with that company for not even a year. I was only with them for about 6 months or so. And you have to be with them after a year. I think it's anywhere pretty much you work that you got to be there after a year to take advantage of the medical pay and such, or the med leave and whatever. Short-term medical leave, I believe. And I was put on that for 3 months just to get my back pay. And I thought maybe by the end of the month, or not the end of the month, but towards November, I would be feeling better and I could actually go back to work. I actually tried to on my 4th week, but when I went to go and sit down when I went to work, none of them had, the warehouse I was at did not have any comfortable chairs at all, except for some of the patio furniture that was still there. But by that time, there was barely any patio furniture, barely any comfortable chairs or couches to sit on, because everything was pretty much winter product by then. Because at that time we were transitioning to our winter season. That's when we started delivering to all the resorts in Colorado, all the ski and snowboard resorts, and all we did was just deliver palletized freight of ski equipment, clothing, just anything you can think of for that kind of stuff. And I actually enjoyed doing that because it actually worked out in my favor so much, because I was no longer capable. I'm not back then, but now, and I think it's going to be for the rest of my life, I'm no longer physically able or physically capable to do these types of jobs. So I obviously could not lift up the furniture anymore, not even any of the lighter stuff, because now whenever I bend over to pick up something, I'm bending down at an awkward angle, almost like an S-curve. And I don't know why. I can't force myself to bend down straight. I'm pretty much forced to bend at an awkward angle, and even then it still hurts. Even when I try and do proper form for anything, even when picking up a gallon of milk, I'm trying to use proper form, otherwise it hurts to pick up a gallon of milk from the ground. So for the duration of October and like the first 2 weeks of November, I was making deliveries to the mountains, and the distribution center I was working at is actually here in Lakewood. So from Lakewood, I would go all the way out to Frisco, and then from Frisco, I would go out to Gibson, and then from Gibson, back to Frisco. And these were actually for warehouses out there. And then from Frisco, back down to Lakewood. So the way the actual route worked was, the truck I would take would be loaded up with palletized freight for both Frisco and Gibson. I would stop in Frisco first and drop off any palletized freight that was meant for the Frisco warehouse. From there, they would distribute it to some of the resorts out there in the kind of like the the southern region of Colorado, like Breckenridge and all that, sometimes Telluride and a couple of those other resorts over there. And then after that, close up the truck and then drive up to Gibson, which was about another hour and 40 or so. I mean, the trucks I was driving, large commercial trucks, single axle box trucks, 26 footers, but all the trucks that the company had, they all had limited speeds up to 65 miles an hour. And then going up the mountain with a fully loaded truck, that meant that they couldn't even reach 45 miles an hour. So it would take a lot longer than that. And it was a very enjoyable drive. I mean, I love mountain driving. So that was probably the best month and a half or so of that job. And then it got to a point where my back was getting worse, and this was that I had to pull palletized freight. Some of that palletized freight could weigh up to 1,300 pounds or so. No joke. Some of those pallets were extremely heavy. I didn't realize. I'm not a ski or snowboard guy, but I didn't realize that palletized snowboards and ski frames, or not ski frames, but just skis and snowboards. I did not realize that those things could be so heavy. But I did have some trouble pushing pallets. I could pull pallets pretty easily, not too many issues there. Sometimes pulling a pallet felt kind of good on my back. Felt like I was stretching it, but pushing it, no, I couldn't do that. So I was struggling a bit with there. Eventually got to a point where it was getting worse, the pain. I actually was forced to quit that job. So since the second week of October, I actually quit a week before my birthday. My birthday is on the 18th of November. And then since that day, the week before I had my birthday, when I quit, I have been unemployed since. And up until last week, I was on unemployment. Last week was my final week of unemployment. That ran out. So now here I am, and I've actually been scrambling to try and find work. But the thing that makes it so difficult, as I mentioned earlier, is I'm not physically able anymore. I can't do the physical work. And here in Colorado, and I'm sure anywhere else, the easiest job to get into are also the most physically demanding jobs. My stuff was always warehouse work. Warehouse, transportation, logistics, that's kind of my area of expertise. Although my career choice was being a detailer. I was working for a dealership for years. The majority of it that time was spent detailing cars. I mean, I love cars. I've always been a car guy, and I love detailing. I can't really do detailing now because of the awkward angles you have to bend over. A lot of times you got to be standing for a long period of time. I can't stand for no more than about half an hour before my back starts to kind of feel numb, and then kind of gets a bit painful. I can't walk for no more than 30 minutes or so, depending on how intense the walk is, you know, if I'm going uphill or something. Because I also have an issue. I have a bone illness. I don't know if it's an illness or a disease or something like that, but I have a bone condition called LCP, which is leg calf prosthesis or leg calf protus, however you pronounce it. Apparently, some doctors I've spoken to have never heard of LCP, but others have, mostly physical therapists that I've been to. Obviously, they've all heard of leg calf prosthesis. It's something that's only found in men. To make a long story short, there, my right leg is an inch, it's almost an inch shorter than my left leg, and that's actually been another cause of my back pain as well. They want me to get it replaced as soon as possible because, one, I have no more cartilage in my femoral joint. LCP affects the femoral joint where your femur connects to your pelvis, the little socket joint, the ball. There's no more cartilage there, but they say that the pain that I experience, the flare-ups, and I can't describe the pain. I've been asked so many times by many doctors, can you describe the pain that you feel in your hip? I told them no, I can't. It's a very unique type of pain that I can't describe. But they tell me that's probably not bone on bone. And one of the things with LCP, like one of the main issues with it, is it can cause bone necrosis, which is bone death. So loss of blood flow to your femoral joint, the socket area, which is kind of strange how it only affects that area. And when you look at the x-rays that I have, I don't think I can post them up, but when you look at it, a normal femur ball joint is supposed to look like a ball, like an actual ball. But when you look at the one that's affected by LCP, it's more egg-shaped, and I also have a chip kind of in the upper portion of the pelvic area where a chip that is very close to the femoral joint, the ball, the little egg shape. I don't know if it was caused from it or not, but I do have a chip there in my pelvic in the pelvic socket. So that's kind of cool, I guess. I don't know, but at the time of this recording, I do need to get a hip replacement, but I am waiting on it. Even my doctor, the specialist, I don't know what those specialists are called for the hip and all that, joint specialists. They say kind of it's best to hold off on getting a hip replacement until you're much older, you know, probably when you're closer to 50, 55, because if I get it now, I have to, 25 years from now, I'm going to have to get another hip replacement because the hip replacement any kind of replacement you do degrades over time, and eventually, depending on what kind of material it is, although all of it's titanium now, but there's also some soft material that's also used. I think when they showed me the hip replacement, kind of felt like rubber almost, and they told me that's the part that will degrade and that'll eventually have to get replaced again. But if I get the replacement now and then I get another one later on in life, my hip is actually going to be weaker than it will be then, and I don't want that to happen because I still have some activities I do outside. My primary hobby is airsoft, and airsoft is a very physically intense sport, if you want to call it. I mean, there's a lot of running around. You're wearing heavy gear. You're running around with a heavy gun. I mean, it's just overall, it's a very physical activity, and I mean, I love it. But when I wake up the next morning from airsoft, my hip is in a lot of pain. I'm always paying for it, and it's kind of worth it. So I'm going to be holding off on the hip replacement. So I don't know if any corrections I can do to my back. They want me to get another shot done because it's going to be a step-by-step process type thing. If the first step doesn't work, we'll move on to the next step, and if that step doesn't move on to the next one, so on and so forth. So that's what's going on right now. I do have interviews. I've got 2 interviews. One is actually for a detailing position for a dealership I used to work at, but that dealer, when I was working at the time, they actually outsourced the detail department to a third-party detail company, and then they're honestly not that great. But that's the interview I have with. The quality of my details was always so much better than these guys. I mean, it's a cheap company, so you pay you buy what's the quote, you get what you pay for, pretty much. So that's kind of what's going on. And then of course the other one actually is like an actual part-time job, because that's what I need. It's a part-time job for Lowe's. I'm thinking Lowe's might be a better option than going with Tep Seal, the detailing company. So I don't know. I need to kind of weigh my options. But at this point as well, another thing that kind of impacted me financially was my car. So I had a really good paying job back then before I had my muscle spasm. I bought a brand new 2023 Audi A3 at the time. No miles. Really nice. An Audi. I mean, Audi's always been one of my favorite brands, and I really wanted to eventually move up to an RS3, but that's probably not going to happen for a while now, that I basically have to kind of get back on my feet, so to speak. And my monthly payment for this month is actually due. It's actually due tomorrow, or it starts tomorrow, and then obviously I have the grace period. But if neither of these places pay weekly, I am gonna have to take my car back, and if that happens, I'm gonna be kind of in trouble. I do have an old truck, a 90, I think it's a 94 or 97 Dodge Dakota that my uncle gave me. All it needs is some new tags to get registered and an emissions test, and that's it. And honestly, I'd rather drive that thing than have to worry about a payment on an Audi. So, and of course, the other thing too is the Audi is not insured anymore. Obviously, I couldn't afford the insurance anymore. I actually got kind of screwed on my insurance, actually. When I went to go renew my policy, my insurance, for some reason, and this is month to month, by the way. This isn't every 6 months or a year. No joke. Several insurance companies wanted to charge me $1,500 a month. Not only $1,500 a month, but they wanted $1,000 down just to start the policy. It's like, what the hell you getting these numbers from, dude? Like, I've always paid, like, my yearly for the Audi at the time was $1,500 a year. And I wanted to clarify, are you sure that's not a year like what I was paying? I was paying $1,500 a year. That's actually not too bad for an Audi. But no, it was $1,500 a month with $1,000 to start the policy. And then the cheapest one I could actually find, the cheapest quote I could find to get another policy going, $800 a month, and they still wanted a $400 down payment to just start the policy. It's like, no, that's not happening. And on top of that, my car is out of registration as well. I mean, I don't know how it is state to state. Here in Colorado, you have to you gotta renew your tags every 6 months, or not every 6 months, but every year basically. So mine expired in August of 2024. Here we're approaching August of 2025. I mean, it's still a bit off, but after a year, if you don't get the car re-registered, then the DMV will get it kicked out, and then technically you're driving an illegal car because it's not registered anymore. So that's what's going on. Yeah. Well, that was kind of a bit of a rant. I just wanted to make this video and kind of give you my life story. And I actually never mentioned why I wanted to come back to YouTube. I mean, so here's the other thing. It says, because I'm not physically able to work anymore, like physically demanding jobs, and it's so difficult to find a desk job, I'm trying to look towards alternatives before I decide to go on disability. As I've been told by my doctors, I mean, there's enough going on with you that you can do disability. I'm not sure if I want to do disability. It's kind of embarrassing for someone so young like me to be going on disability. So here I am trying to give YouTube a try again. This time I'm kind of, more of my foot in the door type thing when it comes to YouTube. I always take the Saturdays and Sundays off. I'm not recording anything or editing anything on the weekends. So I'm trying to actually just get a schedule figured out. So that's kind of the plan at the moment, because with YouTube, I don't have to worry about lifting 50 to 70 pound items every other minute or something like that, and I don't have to worry about bending over and breaking my back any more than it already is. So that's kind of what's going on. Although it's a really slow grind at the moment. I gotta get some stuff figured out. I mean, I kind of have an idea of what to do now, looking back at the past few videos I posted, and I'm getting more and more of the right direction I should be going versus the direction I have been going. So that's kind of a good thing for me. So now I think I can end it here. I think we're good now. That's like 30 minutes? Not too bad. No script. This is kind of just me just talking out of my head. I don't think I'll be editing. I don't think I'm gonna trim down the audio just because that way you guys can kind of, I don't know, hear the story in its raw form while enjoying some random gameplay videos in the back. Well, if you've watched this far, I mean, thanks for hearing my plight, hearing my story. The next video is going to be something not like this. Can guarantee that. I don't think I'm going to be doing too many of these. I'm guessing vlogs. I don't know. Story time. I don't know. Either way, the next video is just going to be more of what I've been doing. So stay tuned for that if you are. Otherwise, thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you guys on that next video. Peace and goodbye.